Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our very last Advocacy Day, if you can believe it. Thank you for being here with us today. My name is Tanika Aiden. I am one of your co-facilitators for today. I am an African-American woman. My hair is in braids. It's up in a ponytail today. I have on a bright pink shirt, and there's a lot of sun shining on half of my face, and I'm wearing glasses. And I am sitting in a blurred background, and I'm here with my co-host, Taylor. How you doing, Taylor?
Good. How are you doing, Tanika? Good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor Crisp. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also in a blurred background with the sunshine showing a little bit. And then I am wearing a light black hoodie with a side ponytail. And I'm excited to get started here. So welcome.
Welcome, welcome. So this morning, we are going to kick everything off by reading a resolution, House Resolution 4632.
Are we going to share that screen, Tanika, for it, or where is it going to be shared? Perfect.
There we go.
Perfect. There it is. All right. Do you want me to get started, Tanika? Is that good?
Sure.
Awesome. So House Resolution number 2023-4632 by Representatives Taylor, Ramal, Durr, Schmick, Berry, Wiley, Ty, Orwell, Richelli, Alvarado, Chapman, Chop, Shavers, Wallen, Bronski, Rue, Doglio, Leavitt, Berg, Fossey, Goodman, Santos, Gregerson, Mossbrucker, Street, Farbavar, Clicker, Ramos, Cortez, Kloba, Macri, Simmons, and Sen.
House Resolution 4632. Whereas March was recognized as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month by former President Ronald Reagan in 1987 through Proclamation 5613. And
whereas Washington State has over 170,000 people with developmental disabilities, primarily living in the community with their families, and
whereas Washington families care for their loved ones with developmental disabilities. Families, especially those caring for young children and senior families caring for adult children, experience diminished employment opportunities, housing insecurities, and a woefully under-supported caregiving workforce. And
whereas Washington State toddlers with developmental disabilities may begin experiencing discrimination and isolation at a young age in childcare centers and preschool settings, and
whereas Washington State students with developmental disabilities are often isolated in school, segregated in a learning environment, have lower graduation rates, and are more isolated after graduation, and their non-disabled peers. And
whereas developmentally disabled Washingtonians of color, developmentally disabled Washingtonians with language access needs, developmentally disabled Washingtonians who are gender non-binary, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered, and gender and sexuality questioning are at greater risk for living in poverty and isolation than their non-disabled, cisgendered, heterosexual peers.
now, therefore, be it resolved that the House of Representatives supports the resilience and courage of Washingtonians with developmental disabilities by highlighting their stories, their needs, and their hopes for thriving and inclusion in community-based settings. All right. And now we are going to watch a video from King 5 on from their institution series. It's a coming.
Welcome back. Tonight we want to bring you an update to the King 5 Investigator series, Last of the Institutions.
The multi-part series showed how people with severe developmental disabilities.
Sorry, can't hear.
I think Dinah's trying to adjust the volume.
Autism and cerebral palsy can live successfully outside the confines of our state's 4 remaining institutions for the disabled.
As King 5 Susanna Frame reports, the series has set in motion more resources to help people with disabilities.
Since November, we've brought you a first-of-its-kind series. Last of the Institutions exposed the state's continued segregation of people who haven't broken any laws or done anything wrong. They were simply born with a developmental disability.
The question is really kind of how and when.
Charlie Lakin is a national expert in the field.
To see them as sort of a different species that would want to live their life in a way that's different than the rest of us want to live our life is unfortunate and frankly discriminatory.
We showed how Washington lags behind much of the country in institutionalizing people with disabilities. Unlike most states, we still operate 4 large facilities: Fircrest and Shoreline, the Rainier School in Buckley, the Yakima Valley School in Sela, and Lakeland Village outside of Spokane.
Hey, Youssef, come here. Let's try this.
The series highlighted how people with even the most severe needs, like Yusuf Khosrow,
Yes.
can thrive out in the community with the right supports, that these citizens have the right to be believed in as contributing members of society, such as finding employment. Ron Davids is Yusuf's job coach.
Our goal is that every human being finds a place to work, because work is not just something important that people do, but it's something which gives us value. Very good. Okay. Thank you. Nice work today. It's something which in our culture says you are a fully integrated member of society, and that's our goal.
2 months after the series launched, DSHS made a policy change, one to help people move out of institutions quicker.
Ready? Good.
Agencies that support clients in the community started receiving this notice from the state, detailing an exciting opportunity to receive more funding to help transition people with challenging support needs from institutions to community-based living.
This is more funding for me to better prepare my staff.
Good job.
Mary Nissel Klein has worked in the field for 22 years and has never seen the state offer more to help people with disabilities move out into regular neighborhoods.
Let's go see what's going on. Figure out some lunch, huh?
Usually news is we're cutting this, we're cutting that. Do more with less money.
But this time,
I was thrilled. Thank you. I think it'll really help.
Our reports also showed political and emotional barriers that help keep the institutions running. They provide over 2,000 state jobs, jobs their unions fiercely defend. On top of that, many families with loved ones fight tooth and nail to keep the facilities open. We spoke to many who think their brother, sister, or child could never make it in the real world.
would any of you at this point consider moving this person in your life into the community?
No. But since the series began, there's been a change of heart for many people. A state program to help families move their loved ones out of the institutions, the Family Mentor Project, has seen its enrollment skyrocket by 400%.
Since your series started, my client base has quadrupled. Between the last couple of weeks and by the end of April, I have 9 people moving. And that's more than I've had in the last 18 months. And this is a wonderful story.
Rosemary Kruger is in charge of the program.
We just had lots of meetings.
For the past 5 years, she's helped dozens of people move out of institutions by working with family members.
This picture was taken right at Rainier.
Many of them, like Barbara Dropboom, very nervous about the idea. Her brother was a resident at the Rainier School.
Who was going to feed him? Who was going to free his food? He wasn't toilet trained for quite a long time.
It's no wonder Barbara worried about moving her brother Mark out of Rainier.
Come on, bud. You want to try?
He's nonverbal and needs help with all of his basic needs. And Rainier was home for most of his life, 52 years.
Do you think you would have made this move without the
No.
Family Mentor Project?
I would not have done it.
With the help and support of the Family Mentor Project, Mark moved from Rainier at the age of 63 to a home in Puyallup with around-the-clock caregivers, a drastic change for a person who knew nothing but the structured routine of an institution for more than 5 decades.
What's going on, buddy?
How's it gone? Everyone around Mark can tell he's a happier man.
Can I scratch your back? Back there? Okay.
He's getting the best care he could possibly get. And he goes out and does real things.
Come on. When the loved one is nonverbal, it's an extra scary decision for the parent or guardian because they don't know for sure what their loved one is thinking. But after the move, they can tell how much happier they are, how free they are.
Let's go enjoy some sun.
The state just added another employee to the Family Mentor Project to help meet the increased demands. So now they have 2 people on the payroll. So as I said earlier this evening on a different newscast, this is such a fun thing to be able to bring to you guys to tell you that, you know, something positive has come from our investigation.
Those pictures say it all, don't they?
I know, what a sweet man.
Yeah.
And I have to hand it to the families. They are taking a huge risk, but that's how much they love their relative.
Yeah.
They want to take the risk to see them happy.
And that woman, Rosemary Kruger, says she's never worked with a family, albeit, you know, they're very scared, who has regretted the decision. So I think that says a lot.
All right. Susanna, thanks.
Sure.
That was a great video. It's nice to see how much improvement can and a drastic change can be when someone is coming from an institution into the community, and how much more that helps the brain function overall, and it's just going to improve skills overall. And I'm very happy for that man, and I hope to see it happen even more in the years to come. Next, we're going to have Diane Larson from Family Mentor Project speak if Diane Larson's ready.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here. Kelly Church, the coordinator of the Family Mentor Project, sends her regrets that she couldn't join us this morning. She is so busy, and it's a lot to do with how busy we are as family mentors. So I just want to share just a little bit of background about where Family Mentor Project kind of came from. I loved being able to see that video and see Rosemary, Rosemary White's face, and Kruger, excuse me. She is just so sensational, and we really miss her working with us in the project. Currently, there's Kelly Church, the coordinator. I am the assistant coordinator. Tammy McGrath is a family mentor, and we have Rosalind Bethman over in Spokane, who's also a family mentor. We received funding initially in 2011 when the Francis Haddon Morgan Center was closing in Bremerton. DSHS-DDA recognized that they can tell families lots of ways of how safe the community is, how many supports are out there, how things can be structured, and often families are just not wanting to believe them. Sometimes because they've tried community from an RHC and they've failed and ended up back in an RHC, and many of them just decided community doesn't work. However, when a family like mine that has gone through the process themselves of accessing community residential services, families tend to believe them. And something that I learned along the way in trying to help my son, Brendan, who has lived successfully in the community for over 10 years, first 2 years in an adult family home, and then over 8 years in supported living, is that fear is the absence of knowledge. A lot of times we're not afraid of the dark. We're afraid of what we think is in the dark, and we believe it can hurt us. So what we get to do as family mentors is we get to sit down with individuals, families, and their guardians and explain to them just exactly what community services look like, specifically community residential services. So one of the things that I get to do as a family mentor, my role is specifically going into the residential habilitation centers. I've had the privilege of working with individuals and families in every single RHC in the state. So that was for Crescent Shoreline, Rainier and Buckley. We have Yakima Valley School in Sela, And there's also Lakeland over in Medical Lake outside of Spokane. I have several people I get to work with right now at Rainier because of the Patsy closure. And the way that we engage with families is, first, we are referral only. And a lot of times we can be referred by staff at RHCs or through roads to community living case managers or other DDA case managers. And if you go to our website, familymentorproject.info, and I can put that in the chat, or maybe somebody like Diana's dad maybe can pop that in the chat. Thanks, Diana. Then you would be able to go onto our website and get more information about when we started, how we're funded, and also see some success stories. And anyway, once we are referred or a family that's in an RHC reaches out to us, we immediately get involved. And the first thing we do is we offer to talk to them in person. If we can't, then we'll set up a Zoom call, we'll talk by phone, we'll video chat, we'll do whatever it takes to get information to that family. And when we sit down, we really just get into the bones of the story. Why is somebody living in an RHC? How long have they been there? Have there been attempts at community living in the past? And if so, and it failed, what went wrong? We really want to understand the story. And I hope that you all can hear the words coming out of my mouth. These stories are very, very rich and important. And they are stories that are attached to a human. And so that's something as family mentors, we do not take lightly. So with respect, we listen to all angles of what that story is. And what's really, really interesting, like Susanna Frame had demonstrated in her story before, is how many families, once they have a chance to see what's available and they kind of test that out, they find that it works better for their loved one. So what we do is we offer to give them information on what supported living looks like, how many agencies are in their area. And then when they say, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to look for, I'm not sure what to ask for. That's the job of a family mentor. We help develop the questions. We will go with them to sit and talk with supported living agencies or adult family homes. We will tour homes with them, sometimes lots of homes. I've had a client who had several supported living agencies interested in providing services in the community. He lived at Rainier for 57 years, and we went to several homes. And it was really neat for that guardian, who also happened to be his sister, to take a look at what was out there and say, oh, I don't know if this would work. But when she found the agency that she felt she could really communicate with and found a home, she couldn't stop dreaming about how her brother could live and thrive in the community. And guess what? He was going to be closer to her. And so it's really fun as family mentors to just share information. Our goal is not to steer anyone to make any particular decision. Our goal is to provide as much information as absolutely possible so that an informed decision can be made. And what we have found is often the informed decision leads to community residential placement and a really great life after that. So I'm open to any questions. I know I just dumped a lot of info.
Diane, can you kind of maybe share a couple stories of, successes that you've seen happen?
Yes. We also have the privilege of working with individuals in skilled nursing facilities. So we really like to encourage people to look at community. A mother who was pushing really hard actually for her son to move from a skilled nursing facility into an RHC. He was young. He had a lot of medical needs, and she believed firmly that he was only going to receive the best medical care possible in a medical type facility. Because he couldn't stay at the nursing facility, she was looking for long-term placement at either Furcrest or at Lakeland. I went and met with her clear down in Clarkston, Washington. And that's something to know too. As family mentors, we will go anywhere. I will hop in my car and drive for 5 hours to sit for 2 hours face-to-face with somebody who just needs more information because they're scared. And I did that for this mom. And I also met her amazing son. And she was really, really reluctant. She was scared. And it wasn't because of any other reason that she deeply loved her son and she was concerned he wouldn't have the adequate medical care. She trusted a little bit. We went and looked at some agencies towards some homes, and you'll find his success story on the FMP website. It's Dylan. And she actually said that he was receiving a higher level of medical care in the community because it was more personalized, it was more one-on-one, and the competition was lower. Another one, someone that I had mentioned a little while ago, 57 years at Rainier, found supported living, and he's thriving. And you know what's really interesting too? There is a component to being able to receive services at Rainier's RHC. It's called active treatment. And as individuals age, they get to a point where they don't want to work anymore and they're just kind of wanting to relax. Well, sister really was worried about him moving into the community and not doing anything. Yet when he moved into the community, he relaxed and he was actually able to kind of sink into the retirement that he wanted and go out and do the things in the community that made more sense for him. She was surprised at how much he was thriving through that. And it's been an adjustment. Something that family mentors also do is once a person moves, we don't stop. We are always available to families and individuals and guardians. So she's reached out on a couple occasions just with questions. Oh, this kind of popped up. What do you think? And oh, he's not as active as I thought it would be. It's been really neat to say he's his own person. He's determined in what he wants in his life. The question is, do you think he's happy? Is he healthy? Is he safe? Are his needs being met? Yes, yes, yes. And I said, he's got his life in his own home. So that would be a really cool outcome I would love to share. And right now, I think another one that's been neat, working with families out at Rainier, especially going through the Pat A closure, many of those families advocated to be moved into Pat C. Now Pat C is closing. So a lot of them, again, are now requesting to move into the remaining Pat, which is Pat E. Some are saying, what's going to happen when Pat E closes? Because they all kind of suspect that's next. And I said, maybe it's better to start looking at the community now. There are 2 families that I currently get to work with right now who may have placement in Pat C, but have decided to go ahead and explore community. And after taking a look at a supported living agency, they've decided to enter into mutual acceptance. And instead of going into Pat E, they're looking to go into supported living. So that's an in the works success story. So I'll just leave those ones with you so I don't take up too much time.
All right, looks like you have some questions here. I think I saw Krista first.
I just want to say thank you for all the work you're doing. It's really amazing. And to see a process that is so specifically person and family centered is also really inspiring and moving as we are constantly talking about systems and how systems don't always work for an individual because it doesn't consider what individuals and what families need in order to have what they need in the community. So it's just inspiring.
Thank you.
I was really excited a few years ago when the peer mentorship project was gonna get moving. And I have 2 questions. One is, family mentors are amazing. Peer mentors, likewise, would be amazing and help with that transition process from a person-centered position, especially, you have individuals who maybe take longer to get to know, don't communicate verbally. So it takes that consistent long-term relationships and may want to establish and help establish unpaid friendships in the community. So, I'm wondering how the process might happen, or if you notice any barriers to getting peer mentorship established and ongoing for that, because I think that's a really important component. Just like the families need that mentorship, I think individuals themselves deserve that mentorship as they're leaving something that has been so long established. And then the second question that I had is, when you have people who don't have family involved, who maybe they have professional guardians that have multiple people in the RHCs, or they don't have any guardianship established, so they're their own guardians, and how that might look differently, and that process might happen differently, and how those referrals even happen in those situations to your program.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you. The peer mentors, that's one that I've actually been thinking about. I helped transition a gentleman out of Rainier. Gosh, it's been 3 or 4 years now. And I think he'd be a wonderful peer mentor. Barriers that I see, I'm going to be really, really honest. I think there is a softening that needs to happen with some of the guardians. So my natural protective nature as a mother of a almost 29-year-old young man, limited verbal skills, who really does require 24/7 awake care, is I also want to protect those who would be peer mentors going in. I think I feel strongly that they would need support as well. That trying to find my words carefully here. To be very transparent and frank, I worry about the perception. I know that what benefits us as family mentors is that we have walked the walk so we can talk the talk. And so I think a peer mentor definitely needs to have access community residential services, and then maybe talk a little bit about some changes they felt there. And this gentleman that I'm thinking of from Rainier is verbal and has strong feelings about how much better life is in the community. So I think that might be a good peer mentor, but needs support. So I think really, I personally think that we have such wonderful employment supports in the state of Washington. It might be nice to see employment vendors, perhaps in the areas where there are RHCs, step up and maybe create a division where they can specifically support individuals who are looking to become peer mentors, and they themselves receive a little bit of in the know. I mean, I know me personally, I can't speak for the project. Me personally would want to pour out as much information as I could into somebody who would be supporting a person going into an RHC setting. I've had the privilege of being in them now for going on 6 years and learned a lot. So I think in an effort to, I'd say, protect individuals who are self-advocates, I think it's really important that they have a really solid one-on-one support in that endeavor. Barriers for those who are self-advocates or have nobody else in their corner. That is one that I do see. And as family mentors, we'll work with anybody. So whether they're their own person or not, and we do stay plugged in, but again, our capacity really is within a certain lane. And I don't know, if anything, I want to validate that there is a barrier there, that it is too bad that there are some people who are kind of isolated in that way socially. I'm just going to kind of leave it at that.
I think Joy had her hand up. I see it anyway. Are you there, Joy, or do you want to?
Thanks, Taylor. Can you hear me? We're good. Okay. First of all, Diane, thank you. I didn't even know of this program, and hearing you describe what you do and the heart that clearly you have in that work is just kind of making my morning happier, knowing that that's going on. I do want to push back a little bit on the thinking that that it's fear alone that is a barrier, and kind of ask you about what other barriers you encounter. So I have a 24-year-old daughter who's high support needs, autistic, limited communication, happily living in supported living right now, and I'm so grateful that she is. But we've encountered, various phases of difficulty with that, where we didn't have the supports that we needed for her to be happy and healthy and safe in that setting. And I work with families in my job who really, have their loved people maybe have even higher support needs. And they are completely unable to find community settings and supports that will allow their loved one to leave their home and live a more independent life elsewhere. So that lack of services is real. That struggle to find things is real. So yeah, I just want to push back a little against that notion that there's nothing to fear but fear itself. Although I agree that the more information we have, the easier it is to find our way through these questions. And, you know, it just feels, as a guardian myself who adores my daughter and who works with other families and sees the love that they have, it just felt a little bit like a gut punch to think that that's the one way to think of it. So my question then is really, what other barriers do you see? I'm sure there are situations where it's just really hard to pull together the supports and services that people might need.
Yeah, you know what, Joy, thank you. Thank you for that. Perhaps it was a little callous for me to reduce it down to just fear. But I guess my point in reducing it that far down is because there is real fear that we don't have enough supports in the community. Apart from my role as a family mentor, I also have a lot of friends that I have gained throughout the years. I'm currently working with a mom whose son has been stuck in a hospital now going on 5.5 weeks. And so as her friend, we're trying really hard to find something in the community. And I agree full-heartedly with you. There are limits to what is available. And so again, I just want to thank you for your comments. I truly do appreciate those, and forgive me for reducing it down. Yes, there are barriers to how much is available. And I think that there are also huge barriers in families knowing what the steps are in requesting services and feeling perhaps sometimes like they're discouraged from making the requests that they are within right to make. I don't want to get too much into that, but you had asked about barriers, and I absolutely see that as a barrier. And, you know, just thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your son. I imagine that the journey has been rich. And so all my light and love goes to you as you're trying to find the services. And again, I do agree, there is quite the lack out there.
And then I think we got time for a couple more questions. Margaret Lee had her hand up, then Julie, I believe. And then also Brandy put something, she had her hand up, but she put it down. But she put something really useful in the chat about DDA currently having peer mentor request proposals. And so she posted that link in there. I'm assuming that's why she had her hand up, but check that info out. It looks very important. Anyways, Margaret Lee.
Are there still?
Hi, Margaret.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Can you tell me how many individuals want to leave the RHCs and haven't been able to move?
I can't. I don't have that number for you. I'm sorry. I know that Kelly and I are working with upwards of 25 individuals right now.
Stacy, do you know that number? I know it used to be like 90.
The last number I had was 87. Betty Schwederman often keeps track of that number sort of on a monthly basis. And I don't know if Betty's on, but it is around that amount that we've been told by DDA.
Thank you.
And then
that makes me unhappy. How's that?
I don't doubt it.
And Julie Clark, do you want to speak, or do you want to, you had a question?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Julie, do you mind if I help a little? You put in the chat that you were wondering from Diane, when you talk with families, if there's a lot of discussion about caregivers.
Yes, that is a number one thing. The top things are staffing. And what is the continuity in staffing? What is the turnover? Also, you know, based on where a person lives, how many staff can they have? And what we always tell them is, first and foremost, everything is based on the DDA assessment as to staffing. So if a home has 3 people and each person has been assessed to require a 1-to-1 staff member, then that means that there would be 3 staff within that home as well. And so We do get a lot about staffing. It's also about financial. How are the finances handled? Food, how is food handled? Community activity, engagement and inclusion, employment, all of these things get covered.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And then Diana, do we have time for one more question? Or do you want to move forward?
There's another question. We kind of
I know Katrina put a lot of info in the chat, so I'd like to give her a chance to speak because she had a lot of input. So I would like to give her a chance if she's okay with speaking.
Well, I'm not. This is hard for me because, folks, I work in the emergency department and I'm working with this population who we're not serving. And Diana, I have to be honest, or Diana, to be honest, my heart is just pounding because it's so hard to hear these success stories when we don't talk about those that are failing. And they are failing and they're leaving our state or they're stuck in emergency departments for months in the most restrictive, unhappy place, no windows. That is a tragedy. That's the crisis.
Yeah.
So you're going to hear me be the broken record because I have to look these parents in the eye and say, we can't play, there's the RHC won't take them now. And I get it, you guys, let's close these places down, but we have to backfill the appropriate level of service in the community that's accessible for this population. This population is being rejected at the highest levels of care that DDA offers. That's tragic. They're being sent out of state. So I'm just going to be a broken record because not only do I have to deal with the sadness of these families and watch this person suffer, who we are representing and supporting. A lot of these folks are profoundly impacted. They have a voice, they advocate in their own way, and we are reflecting that with our passion, So and also it happened to my son, and he was unsafe in our family basement for about 2 years. It was the most traumatizing thing I've ever experienced. So I don't mind being put on the spot because I do feel like I have to let my passion come through. And I'm sorry if I seem like a pain in the butt sometimes, folks. I know I do. And I hope you view it as passion and not trying to harass anybody, but I am going to be a broken record about this because our community needs to understand these people exist and they're in tragedy mode now, beyond crisis.
Katrina, thank you. Because if there's one thing that I can say is I am sitting here talking about the successes of the community, and it takes a lot of work. And one thing that I have been staunch in is that there is an interim between crisis and getting what you want that we struggle as a state to figure out. And I do think that residential habilitation centers have been used beyond their extent, especially if they're an ICF, an intermediate care facility. So I appreciate that because I do know that we have upwards of 60 individuals around the state of Washington who are currently stuck in a hospital setting, unable to find an interim setting. And though as family mentors, we have a history, and even now Kelly Church is still working with the family whose loved one has been in Harborview. But it is really challenging to know how to bridge that from crisis into a more stable long-term setting. And so there is so much value in what you just shared. And I'm not going to presume to know what those answers are.
The answers are hard,
want
aren't
you to
they?
hear me say, I hear you.
Thank you. And I think collectively we can come up with answers, but we have to acknowledge they exist. And one more thing, some of these folks, they go into crisis and their baseline is a high level of care, what we might consider crisis, prolonged, significant, challenging behaviors, very high needs. Those folks exist as part of their disability. It's their beautiful person. It's their essence. Because sometimes people don't move out of what we might call crisis. That's just a higher level of care they need. And that's their baseline. So hopefully we can think about them too, not just crisis who stabilizes, but also high level of care, acute level of care. And they're just as valuable and wonderful. So don't look me here like, I'm not trying to equate severity with the hopelessness. These people have voices and say a lot, but there's just some high level care folks that we sometimes just keep trying to make home and community-based services work. And that model, they need to be adjusted for them just a little bit, a new layer of care for them.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to state how important it is to always have the person that all these conversations are about, all these services are supposed to wrap around in the center of everything we're talking about. So the person that I'm helping in a hospital right now, successfully lived in an adult family home for years. They shifted. Their healthcare needs shifted. There's nothing wrong with them. Their needs shifted. So now it's a matter of finding the right set of services and supports to wrap around them. That's the intent, person-centered services. So when we have a break in following along with that person, it's kind of like, you know, I love the Roads to Community Living, money follows the person concept. But I do hear you. I can't speak for anybody else on this, but you know, we have a very capable, rich system. And I saw Ivanova's comment about holding community residential accountable. I agree with that. I also have huge admiration and respect for the people that we get to serve, who are in the center of all of these conversations. So just got to end on that.
Hey, Katrina, I apologize. I really didn't mean to put you on the spot, but you had so much valuable feedback and I just didn't want it to go unaddressed. And I value your feedback so much and just love what you bring to Advocacy Days and to the IDD community. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot. So I apologize.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate, I needed to be prodded a little bit, and I appreciate everyone just leaning in and listening, because again, I don't mean to stir the pot, but I appreciate having this opportunity to feel safe and share my voice. Thank you. And representing families that I serve. Thank you.
And this is a safe place to do that. And absolutely. And your input is very important, and it's important to me as well. So I'm glad you shared that. And thank you for speaking on something that can be so hard to share too, and thank you for advocating. So we're going to have Tanika introduce the next set of advocates here. So
next we are going to hear from some of our self-advocates from SAIL. We have with us Ivanova Smith, Kyle Matheson, and Tracy Turner. The floor is yours. Thank you for being here with us. And thank you again, Diane, for coming and sharing that amazing work. That's amazing work you do, and you got a lot of love in the chat here. So please take some time and see all the love you got in the chat.
Hello, Ivanova. If you want to go first, be my guest, and then I'll follow you. And then if Tracy's around, we'll do the same thing.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you. My name is Ivanova Smith. So one thing I wanted to define what institutionalization is, because what I feel is the whole system is missing, the whole state is missing. I feel like there's a lot of people that are responsible for institutionalization of people with disabilities. And it doesn't just happen at the RHCs, but RHCs are designed to be institutional. But there are community things that can be institutional too. Institutionalization is about restricting people's rights and how they live their lives. It's about controlling their movements, their controlling when they get to do things, when they get help to do things. It's not just about building or service, it's about how people are treated. The reason why I say I was institutionalized in my first 5 years was because I did not have a family. I was very isolated, and I wasn't given any individual support or attention. I was only given support with my physical needs, but none of the emotional and autonomy needs. We didn't even have birthdays. I had no private property. And when I talk to my friends who have been institutionalized here in Washington, they tell me similar things that happened to them. And how it felt really restricting, not getting to choose just basic things every day in our lives. If I want to have coffee in the morning or tea in the morning, if I want to have certain foods, if I want to celebrate certain holidays, a lot of people with IDD, it is a fight to get those rights. Just to be able, CMS, the CMS rule, it's about making sure that we get to decorate our bedrooms the way we want. Because we had to fight to be allowed to decorate our bedrooms. What non-disabled adult doesn't get to decorate their bedroom? It's really that type of really simple things that self-advocates like myself are fighting against. We do not want any support services to go away. We do not want anyone being rejected from support services. And I'm actually very upset that I keep hearing these stories of people with the highest support needs being rejected and not being allowed in the community. That makes me very upset. And I don't know who all is fault for that, but I'm working the best I can, educating legislators, self-advocates, in leadership. We're doing the best we can to try to stop that and to try to advocate for that funding. We just don't want to be imprisoned for being disabled and needing those supports. If we need support to get up in the morning or to sleep or to hygiene, all those things, we need those supports, yes, but we should not be restricted. If I want to take a bath, I shouldn't be forced to take a shower. It's that simple kind of things. There are a lot of sensory needs with personal care that doesn't even get taken into account. I hear story after story of people who are in community living that it's hard for them to deal with hygiene because they're forced to take a shower when really they just want to have a bath. It's little things that I hear about that crushes my heart. And that's what I see as institutionalization. And that's the kind of things that we need to stop and we need to advocate against. And that's why it doesn't matter if you're in an RHC or if you're in the community, you should be given the same rights. If I want to go to a movie, I should be able to go out to the movies when I want. I should be able to go out to work. I should be able to hang out with my friends. And we all want to do that at different times. And so we need to make a system understand that we all have very individual lives and we want to live them freely. And the support system needs to be there for our families and for ourselves to live freely. And we shouldn't having bureaucrats in the way of that. Whatever, if it's the legislator, if it's the policy deciders at DDA or the agencies and supportive living, I don't know who puts in the paperwork to reject people, but it's wrong. And we need to stop it because we should be serving everyone. All means all. Thank you. And I'm very emotional about this too, because if I had not been taken out of that institution, I would have been there for the rest of my life. And I would never had my children. I would have never got married. I would have never had an education. I wouldn't have had a life. And I don't like seeing other people with IDD not getting to have a life because somebody says, oh, well, then they need too many support, so they don't get to have a life. That's what institutionalization is when you're not allowed to have a life. Sorry.
Well said, Ivanova. Oh, my name is
Yeah.
Kyle Matheson. What you see in the background is a trip that I'm going to be taking this fall to Chicago. One of the biggest things of being independent is planning trips like this. Planning, I went to Mount Rushmore last year, going to different areas and having fun. One of the biggest things about in the aspects of saying, hey, what if I told you you can't do that? What if the person said you can't do this? They say it puts you in the place and says, no, I can do this. If I save up, I can do this. And for supporter, I know how to plan a trip. Sometimes I can be up to a year in advance, but at least planning and getting what's needed to be able to make a trip a reality. or a lot of time, and as in history, when we have between the 50s through about the late 70s, the medical model stipulates saying, if you're a person with a disability that needs high support needs, pretty much as most of his life, they had that opportunity. They told the parent, why don't we stick him in one of our rehabilitation centers? And that's where they will be stuck. But then eventually, if that support, a lot of the parents says, no, we're going to say, hey, we're going to keep that person out and to be able to help that person thrive in the community. Like, unfortunately, I was stayed with my parents until I was my adult, and then now I'm living in the community, and I've been thriving ever since. And I love doing what I do. Between when I used to work, now I'm retired. I go to doing these trips. I love doing being a baseball umpire for Little League. Everybody has certain goals in life that they want to accomplish. And right now, since I've been retired, I still love being on committees, love helping out people, being their peer, and saying, hey, you can thrive in the community. I got parents living in convalescent center. If they open these convalescent centers or these nursing facilities in the community to help that need, it's in the community, but they can still do things outside of the community, in the community. That's very ideal until an apartment opens up where they get those services, instead of being stuck between like in an institution where it has fence lines and there's people there watching a person in case they might escape. That's not ideal when it's maybe, I mean, it looks like an apartment, but but there is your support needs. You can be able to, and you can still thrive in the community. If you'd like to get in your own apartment, there it is. You can thrive in the community and get the help that you need. And I always go by, if there's a bandage, rip it off. That's what a lot of what we're happening now. We're saying, instead of when Center for Medicare Services comes in and says, okay, you need to do this and you need to start closing down. But you know what? Our state government and our state folks are saying, and our people that run the RHC says, and Guardian says, we're afraid. We don't want to, because that's where our jobs are. We prefer to be there because we want to, because that's where our jobs are. But have they ever considered moving their services toward the community and being a nursing community? I was talking to my sister-in-law who is a nurse, and I said,
Hey, Kyle, this is Stacy. I don't mean to interrupt you, but could you just wrap up your thought?
Oh, sure.
Through the agenda.
Well, basically, okay, not a problem, Stacy. And I'll just wrap this one thing. Number one thing about the community is saying is you can be able to do what you want to do in the community, and especially if you get up to my age where you get to retirement and plan trips like since I'm going to Chicago in September and having fun. Thank you. I get long-winded sometimes.
Sorry for that, folks. We're going to have Stacy Dim speak next on the lawsuit for DRW.
Well, hi, everybody. Sorry, this is a hard transition given that really moving conversation. And again, I just, I don't get to share this that often, but as a family member, my sister as well spent time in Fircrest. And before there was the amazing Family Mentor Project, there was a civil rights committee there that sort of functioned in the same way. And my sister also moved into the community, which took a great deal of planning, a lot of planning. And I appreciate watching today the safe space that this has become for all of us to care about each other, because this system is what pulls us apart. It's not us together. And so I just want to remind everybody of that, and thank Diane again. I put it in the chat, but I think you should all just take a minute to appreciate what you just observed. With Diane speaking with everybody. This is why she's in the position she is. And I thank you, Diane, for hearing everybody. So I'm going to talk for just a minute. Unfortunately, DRW could not come this morning. Disability Rights Washington does have a relevant piece here. They have filed a lawsuit just shortly before the holidays asking that DSHS close Rainier School. We all know that CMS has come in and cited a number of violations from that facility, and that one of the Pat C is closing. That was part of a settlement agreement between CMS and the state. But Disability Rights Washington has said, we're talking about the entire facility, that it is time for the state to move forward and plan for the needs of every single person that is there and that we may want to put there in the future to ensure that their needs are met. And it is if you think of carrots and sticks, I suppose, as incentives to the system, disability rights is definitely our stick. The lawsuit is definitely a hard push for DSHS to think about other ways to meet the needs of every single person in our community. So not being a lawyer, I don't want to misrepresent what I think that the lawsuit says, but I do know that there's some very specific remedies in the law.
Stacey, you went on mute there.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. I know it's a lot of words. I have put in the chat what the remedies are that Disability Rights Washington has asked for. Because again, I want people to see what it is they're saying exactly. It is not close the institution and whatever happens, happens. It's a thoughtful way of saying to the state, we should end the practice of admitting new residents to Rainier School, that there should be thoughtful planning and very thorough discharge planning for anybody who would like to leave. Disability Rights Washington has a particular plaintiff in this case that gives them standing, and so they're asking for relief for that individual plaintiff who would like to leave as well. And then there is a requirement and request that the state contract with an independent consultant to come in and look carefully at what the needs are of the individuals that are there and how the state might better design a process where we meet the needs of every single person. And certainly that would be without further injury or harm, and making sure that this is a process that meets the needs of, that is focused on the individuals. And then you'll see in section F that there is a discussion about the deficiencies of our crisis stabilization services, and that people with complex behaviors and co-occurring behavioral health diagnoses are looked at very carefully, both individually and in terms of the system requirement. So this lawsuit is ongoing. It is still in process. And, we talk to disability rights and check in pretty regularly to see how things are going. Right now, there's, still a series of motions happening, and it's hard to know whether this case will settle or that will go to court. There's still a great deal of discussion going on, and I think we can all be hopeful that Disability Rights Washington will, with this very hard push DSHS to look carefully at important future planning and care very carefully for the people that are in their care as a state. So that's what I was here to share in their stead. Hopefully we'll have a little more information that Disability Rights Washington can share with us. I don't know if there's anybody on who
looks like Margaret Lee has a question for you there.
Margaret Lee.
No, you're not an attorney, but you are a paralegal.
Yeah, thank you. So we're again hopeful that all of these things, it's not going to take one thing that changes the system. Every single year we talk about this. These are not new problems. These are not unknown problems to the state legislature. And I think it is at the state legislature where the solutions lie and where accountability lies in large part. So I think we have to keep working on this together.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions?
I just want to say I want to work on a bill to change that policy to create a new no reject policy. And I'll be trying to work on that this summer. Because it shouldn't be happening.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Ivanova. And thank you for your passion and sharing your story. All right, and let's move on to our next topic here. We are going to watch a video, very famous line, "Shut 'em down" with Mike Raymond. So we are going to watch a "Shut 'em down" video.
Okay, Tanika, it's first, Noah is gonna talk.
We're going to hear from Noah.
Yeah.
Okay, Noah, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hi, this is Noah Seidel from the Office of Developmental Disability Ombuds. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the work that our office has been doing at the institutions, and it is pretty similar to the work that Diane and the family mentors do, but a little bit different. So our office, was created to go and visit people with developmental disabilities where they live, help with complaints. We take complaints from individuals and families, and we go and do what we call monitoring visits at the institutions. So the Ombuds office, Rainier School, is in the region that I cover, Region 3. So since the Pat C closure that is happening, we've been involved. So in January, they had a resource fair that guardians, family members, individuals attended. I was there, Diane was there, supported living providers were there, SOLA, the state operated living alternative staff were there, employment providers came out. So this was a chance for family members and individuals to see what opportunities are out there in the community. So this was a great event, and I think they're going to do more of them so people can ask the questions. There are, individuals who've lived there for a long time who have questions, and then of course their guardians and family members have questions too. So this was a great chance for them to get brochures, talk to people. I talked to individuals who they want to know what support they'll have once they leave. So it's, doing visits. If they have concerns out in the community, who can they call? So that was a great event, and there's going to be more events like that. Right now, as of March, early March is when I got my last set of data. There was 47 people living in Pat C. And in Pat E, there is 64 people. So from our visits, we have met people who are currently living in Pat C who are going to be moving on to the community. Some of them are moving into supported living, some of them are moving into SOLA, others are moving to nursing homes. And then from our conversation with staff, we've also learned that there are some people who are going to be moving from Pat C to Pat E. And I think Diane mentioned that, she's heard of people who are doing that, but then some people who are still in the process and looking at community. So those are questions that we are, working with people so they have their information and make sure that it's person-centered. So the individual is in the meetings, they're talked about, they know what options are available. We've also heard that there are some of the cottages or the houses that are currently Pat C that are going to be becoming Pat E cottages or houses. So we talked to residential care services about that and had some questions and kind of getting the understanding of what that's going to look like. So we do think that the layout of Rainier State School is going to look different after Pat C closures and what the buildings are going to be. Another part that we do is we've been doing self-advocacy trainings at the institution. So last week we were in Lakeland Village doing trainings for both staff and individuals about client rights, people knowing what their rights are, what options they have, and we're doing that also at Rainier. And then the other part of Rainier that we work at is the Klamath Cottage, and I know that there's a budget item to keep Klamath open. Klamath was created during COVID to really get people who were stuck in hospitals out as quickly as possible. So they didn't get COVID, but also because those beds are really needed for patients who had COVID-19. So as of March 1st, we knew of 7 people who were at the Klamath Cottage house. And that is interesting because it is not a part of the ICF, the individual care facility. So it's state funded, but they also don't have the regulators and they don't have CMS doing their visits. So we know that there are people in Klamath who really want to get back out into the community. And we know that there are some people who have been there for 100+ days. And their referral packets are out across the state. And some of them have done video referral packets to try to put a face, a personality attached to their packet, and are still waiting for a provider that feels that they can safely serve them. So, I know that in our legislative budget, many people are advocating for residential care, for residential services, for maybe new placement options. So there are many folks that we know that are waiting for Klamath to be moved out of Klamath. So that is another thing that we're looking at. So as this changes, I can give updates. We do know that I think Diane did a great job of talking about the concerns. It is everything. It's a wide range of concerns that people have about the support they're going to get. And some people have moved into the community and it hasn't gone well, and they haven't had those crisis services ready for them when they needed it, and they've gone back to the institutions or gone to other places. So that is the work that the DD Ombuds is doing. And I do see a comment in the chat about Klamath Cottage. And if there's anything online, I will take a look to see what is out there. I know that we have some information, but I don't think there's wide published material out there that I've seen, at least. And yeah, I do also want to just mention that like Katrina said, there are people who are stuck in hospitals who are asking for anywhere else to go but the hospital. And they're asking for community placements, crisis diversion, institutional settings, anywhere where they can have a window or be able to walk around outside. Because when you're in the hospital, you can't, walk off around, you're in your hospital room. So that is, another big issue that we're working at, is where else people can go to. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Noah, as usual, for all your up-to-date info. It's very helpful. You're always helpful and so well put together. And I appreciate you. Next, we're going to have Mike Raymond's video, Shut Him Down, from King 5 News. And I believe this was from the Advocacy rally. So we're going to watch that.
I've been doing this for a long while.
Every time Mike Raymond comes to Olympia,
Michael, what up?
he has the same message for lawmakers.
Shut him down.
The first 20 years of his life were spent at Buckley's Rainier School, a state-run institution for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
They treated us like animals.
Were you sent here sometimes?
Oh yeah, I was in there sometimes.
In 2015, Raymond took King 5 investigator Susanna Frame on a tour of the part of the school he grew up in. That area has since been abandoned, along with a lot of the old practices of restraints and isolation.
The doctors told my mother to put me in the institutions.
While conditions have improved, the state still houses more than 500 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in 4 institutions across the state.
I have cerebral palsy.
I am a self-advocate and love to advocate for people to be able to live in the community.
This group is calling on legislators to close the institutions, to instead focus on smaller group homes or providing support for someone to live with their families.
It's so important for individuals to be home.
Both Republicans and Democrats support the idea.
We have seen for years folks struggling in these institutions.
But there will not be a bill this year calling for the institutions to be closed. It's not that simple, says Representative Daria Fariva.
We want to make sure that people have some place to go. We want to make sure that they've got those robust supports in the community so that they can be successful. And this is the year to start that plan.
The way I feel about them is shut them down.
Mike Raymond is glad more people are talking about closing the institutions, and he says he'll keep coming back to Olympia until they do.
They don't need to have them open. They just shut them down. I'll be happy.
Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
Personally, I'll never get over it, and all for.
Oh, did you have a comment there, Kyle?
Yeah, basic comment. I mean, I know Mike Raymond for many years, and one of the biggest things that he always stands for is shutting down our state institution. Because I know when I visited Fircrest 20 years ago, one of the biggest things that they didn't do was respect the person, especially when they yelled over a private matter that nobody else should heard, especially across the way, and et cetera. And it still probably does it still nowadays, where they yell, nurse to nurse yells, this person did this, and that's not, to me, dignity with respect, with dignity with respect, and that's one of the big why I still on the mission to helping get our institutions closed down.
Yes.
Someone asked in the chat, was that Julie? And Julie just gave her response. A lot of familiar faces in there, as Stacy said. Looks like Justin, you have your hand up.
I am. And can I say something?
Yeah, floor is yours.
I think that, as I said it again, and I would say repeatedly, it's that, I do not think the institutions are the answer, and I just really wish that Washington would see that people with motivation, when they have the caring and understanding and patience, and their support in the system, and then we motivate other people and other people motivate us, and we all work together, then things will be well done and things will work out. We don't need those RHCs to be open. All they do is they'll just big buildings, and people just, from what I've seen for many years, when I watch movies or TV shows, all I see is horror. Because I know, and that's one of the reasons why I do not like movies or TV shows. I know I'm talking about myself, and I'm sorry, but I don't like them because of the way I see it in put institutions, and it's a nightmare. That's what it's like, and that's what I heard from. It's a horror. They just don't let anybody get what they want, do what they want, make choices, and it's not right. And I don't get why Washington can't see what I've said and heard. There needs to be support, there needs to be motivation, patience, and with the little bit of technology that's out there, I think things would be different, things would be better for this community, and I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, and RHCs would be shut down and not necessary.
Thanks for sharing, Justin. Yeah, it's going to take advocacy, all of us coming together to make the changes. Which brings us, does anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, thank you for sharing it. Thank you. We're gonna end it how we started it, looking at the rally that kicked off Advocacy Days this year.
On January 25th, 2023, over 400 individuals with developmental disabilities and their supporters gathered at the Capitol steps in Olympia, Washington.
Because our community is here and visible, and visible, and visible. We must be seen. We must let everyone know that we can do better in Washington State.
And now I live in a community. I have a family. I have a husband. I have my beautiful children over here. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was stuck in an institution.
We are watching for several legislative efforts to pass this legislative session, including House Bill 1407, which removes the 10-year-old re-eligibility barrier, House Bill 1188, which caseload forecasts for children with developmental disabilities in the child welfare system, full funding for special education, including removal of the special education cap, a proviso that lets working families buy into Medicaid to ensure insurance covers their child's complex medical needs, and better rates for community professionals. We hope these efforts and more will transform the developmental disabilities system and build the community.
For the DD community across our state, we have made progress in recent years, but we're not there yet. We have made progress.
We can do better in Washington State. So I'm really invested in this work. I am working with Rep. Daria Farivar and several other lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, both senators and representatives. We want to get our hands right in the middle of all the dirty making work to make a beautiful soil for us to build a new community, an inclusive community, a truly inclusive community.
And how important it is that we continue to raise awareness for our community and our community members, every single one of them, and that we highlight the possibilities and abilities of everyone. So,
Lack of housing is the #1 issue preventing people with developmental disabilities from living in the community. House Bill 1628 is a real estate excise tax that will provide about $40 million every biennium, specifically to develop housing to meet the needs of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Washington State. We're keeping a close eye on that bill.
We need people to get out into the community and see the Mariner games and the Seahawk games, and to live in the community so that they can learn to be on their own and support themselves.
Today, about 460 people with developmental disabilities still live in our state institutions with little opportunity to move to the community.
We have seen for years folks struggling in these institutions. We have seen our federal agencies step away from them, from the oversight, from funding them, and we need to not ignore this behavior. We can't continue to rely on a system that's designed as a last resort. We want to make sure that we're here standing with all of the folks who are involved in these RHCs.
Person, regardless of whether they have disabilities or they don't, deserves the same recognition, respect, and autonomy.
Join us and support us, and we will fight for the equity, inclusion, and the respect and the dignity that we all deserve. Thank you for your advocacy work. This is precious work. What you're doing right here today is precious, precious work. And I want to say thank you because it's so meaningful and so impactful.
That we can do better in Washington State. We can do better in Washington State.
We thank you for your support for this legislative session.
Thanks, Stacy. Bravo. That was awesome and well put together. Thank you for sharing that. Bravo. That was awesome.
Yes.
I was so glad to be in attendance there, as well as Tanika. That was such a great memory, and I hope to be there again in 2024. We're not gonna, since we're fairly behind, we're gonna have Diana Staton close with the bills of interest and budget proposals, and then along with Jessica. Thank you.
Hi there, everybody. Yes, we are now to the point in the legislative session where there's no more committee hearings. We've gotten past that stage. And so what happens with the bills now depends upon how you use your voice with your legislators. They're spending all their time on the floor passing bills, and most of those bills are in rules. And you have to get passed out of the rules committee in order to make it to the floor. So I'm going to share my screen here and just give you a little idea of where the bills are at this point. So we've got the 4 budgets, and there will be what is called a conference committee. And that is the budget leaders in both the Senate and the House, and both Republicans and Democrats, who will get together. And we've had proposals for our budget now from first the governor in December, and then after the revenue forecast came out in March, the Senate put their budget out, and then the House released their proposal. So now they will all sit down and look at those 3 proposals to decide what's going to be in the final budget. The budget is the one thing they have to do during the session. Bills can be passed or not passed. That doesn't matter because it's not required. But they will take some of the bills and make them what's called NTIB, necessary to implement the budget. And so those bills will go through in funding under the budget bill. So we've got all of these now are in rules, or they've already passed. Some of them have already been signed, and we have one that's already on its way to the governor's desk. But these are all the bills that we still have left, and these 2 I haven't updated yet from the Committee on Ways and Means yesterday. We did lose 2 bills this round. The extreme weather events did not make it out of Senate Ways and Means, and neither did House Bill 1541, the Nothing About Us Without Us Act. I know that self-advocates and advocates all over really worked hard on that bill this year because it's been 3 years of trying, but it's not going to make it through, we don't believe. I know that Representative Farvar is going to see if there's some way to put it in as a budget proviso, so we'll see if that happens. But right now, this is where everything stands, is we're watching the Rules Committee to see which bills come out of the rules and get to go to the floor, and then we're watching the floor to see which bills they have passed or are passing. And this is a really interesting time to watch what's happening on the Senate and House floor, because when a bill comes up, different members on the floor will stand up and speak in support of that bill, or sometimes oppose. But to our bills, we're usually going to get a few members who want to say something about why the bill is important for people with developmental disabilities. So it's interesting if you watch TVW or have it on your computer and just listen to it while you're working on other things. Some of those conversations they have are very interesting and very telling about legislators and where their views are on our issues. The one big bill we're still watching in it, it died as a bill, so it's not in this list anymore. But we're hoping that House Bill 1628 will be part of the budget in TIB, because House Bill 1628 is a huge issue for housing, specifically for people with developmental disabilities. There are other groups mentioned in that bill too. It's a real estate excise tax, and it's only on really high income homes or buildings, like $5 million or more. But it would give us about $40 million a year to use for housing just for people with IDP. So we're really trying to get the Finance Committee, which is where the bill is right now, to agree to pass that bill and include it in the budget. So we'll be watching that, and I'm going to turn this over to Jessica and let her share for a minute what you can be doing from here on out.
After this briefing, you have many options to advocate with your legislators. You can schedule a Zoom meeting with your legislators, email today's information to them. You can also email your legislators about bills that are important to you and to set up appointments with them. There are no hearings to participate in this week, but legislators will be on the floor. Let's talk about how to get you connected and what's going on in chambers. On the main page at www.legwa.gov, you would click on House Floor Calendar. Once there, it shows you the display boards for both the House and Senate. If they are working, the boards will display the information about whatever bill they are voting on at that time. Otherwise, it will say that they are at ease, meaning they're not working on voting. They may be at ease for the purpose of caucus, for lunch or dinner, or they may be at ease until the next day. When they go in caucus, that means that all the Democrats go into a closed room, talk about the bills coming up and how they plan to vote on any amendments and the final bills. The Republicans do the same thing in another room. Scrolling down, you will see the list of bills that they plan to pull to the floor for a vote. These bills are on second reading. If there is an A in front of the bill number, that means that floor amendments are being proposed. By clicking in the A, you can read the amendments being proposed once the bill is pulled to third reading and is voted on by members. On the right-hand side, there is a column titled Floor Action. If it has already been voted on, you will see that there. At the top of the page, you will see a link that says Go to Senate Reports. By clicking on that, you will find the same information about Senate bills on second reading. When they are on the floor voting, you can go to the main page, scroll down to where scheduled hearings and floor sessions are listed and click on View Video. This will take you to the TVW page that is showing that floor action for voting. Advocacy Day is a project of the ARC of Washington State and funded by the Washington State Developmental Disabilities Council. We want to make sure you are satisfied with Advocacy Day, so be sure to fill out our feedback form. Your feedback helps us to continue improving and helping your voice to be heard. Let's walk through it together. Start at www.arcwa.org/advocacy-ds. Scroll down to the smiley faces that say your feedback matters and select Click Here. The link to the feedback form in Spanish is right below the link to the English version. Start by putting in your email address. Next, you select the advocacy day you're giving input for. Then you respond if this is your first advocacy day or not. Next, Next, you pick the smiley faces that answer how you feel about the virtual advocacy day. Then you submit the form. Just as simple as that. Your input helps Diana and the ARC to know what you like, what you don't like, what is helpful, and what is not helpful. You can learn about these and more ideas to get involved on our website at www.arcwa.org and click on Advocacy Days. You can also contact us at sale@arcwa.org or diana@arcwa.org if you need help. Are there any questions?
See, Justin, did you have a question there?
No, sorry, forgot to put it down.
I see Eric's hand up.
Sorry, I had a question about some DDA rules that came out recently. So if anyone has any questions on the legislative stuff that was just talked about, they should go first. So seeing no one else raising their hand, I saw on Friday DDA came out with some emergency rules around emergency transition services for Rainier State School. That seems to be just a continuation of what they did during the public health emergency. They had emergency rules around that, and I was wondering if anyone had any more context for what's happening with that. I put a link in the chat to their emergency rules. When I first saw it, I looked back to see if they were the same rules they adopted a few years ago, and they were. It's concerning because it seems like people are being kept in the institution for what was supposed to be something temporary, but is not continuing to be temporary.
I don't think any of us have a lot more information about that. At this point, probably DRW or is Noah still here from the ombuds?
Yeah, I can see if Lisa's reviewed this yet. She goes over all of, like, the DDA rules that come out, and I can send this to her and then touch base with you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I recognize we none of us might have insight on exactly the inner workings of what DDA is thinking on this, so I appreciate the help.
This is Katrina. Is this the bill or the effort to bring like behavior supports into DDA and other like speech and OT? Is that what this is? Because I know that I've been hearing from some parents who have their loved ones at an RHC right now that they all of a sudden were able to get these services to come in. And DDA is paying for the placement. So I'm wondering if that's what it is, because most of these people don't have anywhere else for their child to go, but they weren't able to access the ongoing services the person was having at the time. So so if a kiddo had, or sorry, not a kiddo, a young person, because most of these people are young adults, not kids, had like ABA or speech or OT, and they couldn't access those services once their loved one was at the RHC. So now I'm hearing they can. I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
I'm not sure if this is the same thing. From what I read from the rules when I reviewed them, and I'm not a lawyer, I don't really know much about it, but it seems like the rules were really specifically about how you do things in the RHC, and like it was down to like what the water temperature should be in the cottages that they have, really just establishing that there is this program called an emergency transition program, if I recall correctly, that exists during the public health emergency, and that they're extending it, that has people in the RHCs during this time. So I really don't know too much more about that. That seems different from what you're talking about, but it could be similar if I'm just misreading it.
Karina, did you have your hand raised? Okay. All right, are there any more questions, comments? This is our very last advocacy day for this year.
This is Diana. I want to thank everybody for their advocacy. This has been a phenomenal year. I just can't say how happy I am that the advocacy bug has bitten so many of you, and you've started using your voices in a way the legislature hasn't heard before. That's what Representative Jamila Taylor was talking about, was that we need to be seen, we need to be visible, and we need to be heard. And this year, between all of the advocacy days, each topic had such really compelling speakers this year. And I want to say thank you to everyone who's been a speaker on these programs at Advocacy Day. And I hope that even though this is the last advocacy day for this session's not done by a long shot. Tuning in with your legislators and making sure that they hear your voice about what you want to pass in the way of bills and what budget items are important that they make sure stay in that final budget. They need to hear those things from you. And the ARC has action alerts on our website. And I encourage you, if you're not signed up for that, please do so. Because when you go to the Action Network and sign up, when there is something that needs to be said to legislators, we send out a short email that just tells you a little bit about what the topic is, what needs to be talked about. And then we give you a sample email, and you can put your personal story in right at the beginning of why it's so important to you. And then just click send, and it goes off to your legislators. So I really am so appreciative of all the work everybody's put in this year. We have a budget side by side that's like 4 pages long. I've never seen that big of a one. And we still have a number of bills that are likely going to pass. So your efforts this year have not gone unseen. Legislators are listening to us, and the fact that we got like 9 legislators to show up and speak at a rally is huge. Usually there's only 1 or 2 who come. So they are listening. Don't let them not listen. Keep using your voice so that they keep knowing we're here and we're not going away. And they're going to have to do something to fix the system for people with IDD. Thank you all for coming to and doing so much.
And thank you, Diana. Thank you for facilitating this and asking me and Tanika to help. I hope we did you justice. And
you have done awesome, Taylor. I don't think there could be a better team than Tanika and Taylor. That you guys have just been awesome.
Thank you. And
if we were in person, we'd be handing everybody bouquets of flowers right now, and there'd be a lot of hugging going on. So just pretend like that's happening in our remote world here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've got some tears that are sort of so this is the last one, so it's a little emotional for me. So
the advocacy days may be over, but the advocacy goes on though.
Exactly. Exactly. And but everybody who has joined us this whole session, I thank you so much. You are the ones that have truly made advocacy days happen, and without you guys as an audience, without your support, this session wouldn't be as successful as it was. And we will continue to pass more bills next year, and we will bring these bills back from the dead that are dead, and we will continue pushing them forward. So it'll get even better. So
Taylor, this is Mike McGinty. I'm sorry if I joined a little late, but you did an awesome job.
Thank you, Mike.
And Tanika, you too.
Oh, thank you.
All of you advocates, self-advocates, and parents and leaders, you have been really amazing and inclusive, and I couldn't be around a better group of people. So,
in the words of my mother, it takes a village to get this all done.
Exactly.
And so you guys did an awesome job. You too, Diane.
Thanks, Mike.
And we can't end without giving a nod to the kind and generous support from the Developmental Disabilities Council.
Yes.
As always, we couldn't do this without them,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
very grateful.
Yes.
Thank you
This is
all.
Brandy. Thanks for joining. Let me join the ride. It was super cool to learn so much this year, and I am humbled to be part of this community and all the work that is going on. And yep, I think next year will be even better. I'm excited to keep going. Thanks, you folks.
Thank you so much, Brandy. All right, well, I guess it's time to wrap up. I could talk for hours and be emotional for hours, but I know we have to move on with our day. So with that being said, thank you for joining us this session. And that's a wrap for 2023 Advocacy Days.